I'm Lloyd Holliday, and this is the Cost of a Thing podcast. Thanks for listening in today. So what happened to that great standard of living that we used to enjoy here in America in the 1960s and even into the 1970s? Well, that's what the Cost of a Thing podcast is all about, and that's what I'm going to be talking about here. Okay, today I want to talk a little about globalism and its role in the decline of the American standard of living since the 1960s and 70s. The modern globalism of today has been going on since the end of President Reagan's terms as president. Around 1985 or so, the United States started moving toward globalism. And let me just start up front by saying globalism is a huge topic. Anybody that would really want to cover it well would have to write a 700 or 800 page book that would take probably 2 or 3 years of research to write. And I'm just going to try to get the main points across to you as well as I can without writing that 800 page book. Because I can tell you an 800 page book, like I said, will take probably 3 years of hard work, full time. I'm sure there's already some books out there like that anyway, so I'm just going to hit it here in about 15 minutes and give you the summary and hopefully get the main points across to anybody that's interested out there. Now, I want to talk a little about what is globalism, just a very short answer to that. Globalism is a open borders, one world philosophy where the separate sovereign nations give up their power to a central government, central commission that decides what they're going to do. So under globalism, sovereign nations give up their independence and allow a central governing entity to impose rules and laws on those nations. And one of the goals of the globalists is that they want to bring the standard of living of the third world up. These people that live in poverty around the world, the billions of people who live in poverty, don't even have much to eat, have a really poor standard of living. They want to bring that up. And that's a noble cause. That's great. But my problem with that is they're bringing their standard of living up at the expense of the American people's standard of living going down. I do not agree with that. I don't want that. So if they can figure out a way to bring up their standard of living, while we still keep our standard of living that we had in the 60s and 70s at that level, that would be good. But they can't. They haven't been able to do it. Our good jobs went offshore. Now they've got the jobs over there, and they're doing better, but we're doing worse. And the globalists are willing to sacrifice the developed countries. They think we in America and Europe have been living too well for too long. They want to bring us down a notch or two. And two of the most destructive ways that these central governing entities impose their will on these independent nations, one of them through the trade deals. Those trade deals become contracts, and then the United States has to follow the contract unless they want to try to pull out of it, which takes a majority of Congress and the president to sign off on it. It's hard to do. It's hard to get that done. The second way they ruin the standard of living of countries is they allow lax enforcement of immigration laws and open borders. Lots of illegal aliens come in and take jobs away from the citizens of that country. Those are two big ways that globalism destroys the standard of living of independent nations. And here's where free, quote, free, unquote, trade has lowered the American standard of living. It has allowed corporations to move their factories offshore, mainly to China, probably some to India and some other countries, Mexico, these areas where there is cheap labor. There's very little environmental regulation, so the corporations love that. They get the very cheap labor, almost slave pay labor, and they love that. There's no benefits. You don't have to pay any benefits. And here's the kicker. 70,000 American factories have been moved offshore into these foreign countries. And that's one of the main things I want to talk about today is the 70,000 American factories that have moved over the border to get that cheaper labor. So what do you think that has done to the American economy? It's taken millions and millions of good paying manufacturing jobs and sent them out of the country. They're gone. That has really taken a big toll on the United States standard of living. When you don't have manufacturing, or you are not going to have as good of an economy. And that's what's happened. That's one of the things that's happened. Another thing is because, like I said, there's open borders policies, lax enforcement of illegal aliens that come into the United States. So we have millions, some people say 12 million, some say 30 million illegal aliens in the United States. I think it's probably about 10 million or so. And they come in and they take the jobs, the lower end jobs that Americans might take. And not only that, they lower the wages. A lot of times these guys are paid under the table, less than minimum wage. So they're not going to hire an American at minimum wage or a little above if they can get these foreign guys. So that also has lowered our wages, and they don't have to pay any benefits or pensions or vacations to these illegal aliens either. So that benefits the corporations also, and the small businesses hire them too. These two things are very big and have really taken a big toll on the American standard of living. And another part of globalism is the H-1B visa. Right now in America, there are approximately 500,000 foreign nationals working in America with H-1B visas. Most of those are technical positions, engineers, scientists, software people. And of course, the corporations that hire these people claim that they can't find anybody qualified. Well, it is estimated in the United States today there are 11 million engineers who are not working in their field. And that takes job opportunities away from Americans, and it lowers the wages of Americans because these people are going to take less wages and poor benefits, and that reduces the standard of living of American citizens also. So who wants globalism? Globalism is wanted by Wall Street and its corporations because they wanted to take advantage of that cheap labor, no environmental regulations, the no pensions, the no benefits, all of that, so they could make their products cheaper. So they wanted to go to China, Mexico, and these other countries. So Wall Street is the big driver, and they have gotten the whole government behind it with, of course, lobbying, heavy lobbying, lots of donations to campaigns and those kind of things. And then why? Why do they want it? Well, I talked a little bit about that already. They want to be able to move their factories offshore and take advantage of that cheap labor, and then they get more profit. So that's where the 70,000 factories that used to be in America have gone to globalism, down to globalism. So these corporations, they manufacture this stuff over in China or Mexico, and then they ship it back to the United States and they sell it to us for the same price as if it would have been made here. We're not getting a great break on that, but they're getting a bigger profit. Cheaper to make, they sell it to us at the same price, they get a bigger profit. Wall Street, the value of their stock goes up, and man, they're happy. So that is the main game of globalism. And then when you think about the 10 or plus million illegal aliens, same game. Those are jobs that they really can't ship out of the country. Maybe they're restaurants or hair cutting places or hotels that are in the United States. They can't ship those jobs out. So what they do through globalism, open borders, bring in the illegal aliens, pay them less money. That means more profit for the businesses, and they charge us the same price as they would if it was American workers doing it. that were getting good pay, good benefits, maybe even pensions. Now, those people, a lot of them paid under the table. They don't even pay taxes. So both of those things, the shipping the factories overseas and the bringing in millions of illegal aliens, that benefits corporations and small businesses. So they're the ones that are behind this. So who loses in this? Well, of course, it's the American workers. They've got less opportunity to get a good job with benefits like the people in the 60s and 70s had before all this started. This is one of the main reasons why they can't find as good a jobs and have a secure job, like I said, with benefits and good pay, so they can raise a family, buy a home. So the Americans and their standard of living is the loser in this. And we see that. I mean, if you look at my top 10 super ripoffs that have lowered our standard of living over the last 50 years or so, a lot of them are related directly to globalism. Now, up there on the screen is my top 10, what I call my top 10 super ripoffs that have lowered our standard of living from what it was in the 1960s. And if you look down that list, you don't see globalism. Well, the reason why is because globalism is even bigger than the top 10 super ripoffs, and it is involved in almost every one of those super ripoffs. And I'm not going to get into that today, how globalism is involved a little bit, at least partially, in every one of these top 10 super ripoffs, because the podcast would go too long. So I'll probably do a second part to this where I just go down the list and show how globalism is involved somewhat in each of those super ripoffs that have lowered our standard of living. And if you're interested in looking at the top 10 super ripoffs, I did an individual podcast on each one of those, and I have a playlist right there on my YouTube page. It's real easy to find. Okay, so we know who loses. Who benefits from globalism? Okay, we've already talked about that a little. Wall Street, the multinational corporations that get that cheap labor and bigger profits, and the investors on Wall Street, the big banks that invest in these corporations, and the corporations themselves when their stock goes up because they are perceived as being more valuable because they make a bigger profit. Okay, who else benefits? Well, the illegal aliens that come into our country and they get better pay than they did in their own country, maybe a little higher standard of living when they come here. Maybe they get welfare, American welfare too. They get that when they have kids here, get free school for their kids and free medical if they go to the emergency room and so forth. So they are big beneficiaries. Then the foreign countries, China, look at China. Look at all of the factories that we have over there. Well, they're getting rich. They're getting rich off that. Manufacturing will make you wealthy, and they are getting rich. As we get poorer, they're getting richer. And also a big winner in this is the H-1B visa recipients that come from foreign countries. So the sword of globalism is a two-sided blade. One side, you have the trade, the quote, free trade agreements that ship 70,000 American factories to China, Mexico, and many other countries. On the other side of the sword is another blade, and that is the importation of cheap, illegal labor and legal labor through the H-1B program, as well as the illegal aliens that come in and take jobs right here in America away from American citizens. And both sides of that blade are undercutting the American standard of living and have been doing so for many decades. And we are feeling it here in America today as our standard of living is going down, continues to decrease. Especially if you were here to see how it was before this happened. You feel it. And that's why I'm out here telling you guys, because I was here, I saw how it was before this. Much better for America, much better for the middle class. Thank you for listening in today. And until next time, this is Lloyd Holiday signing off.